Well, okay, why? Why won't it work for all? What's special about this approach that makes it exclusive?
And in all honesty, okay, because I've been in the gym for countless hours every day for 20 plus years, okay, and I've had the privilege to work with some of the best fighters ever. Again, I'm telling you, like I've been with the best trainers, the best fighters. Like I've seen so much varied variety in training methods. Okay, so I really believe there's more than one way to get to the top. But let's say I had two fighters in the practice room, fighter A and fighter B. Okay,
Okay.
fighter A and fighter B, and they're playing games. They're playing games like you're saying, elbows underneath, etc. The more athletic guys are gonna dominate because I'm giving them no secrets. I'm not telling them the secrets of how to keep the elbow. I'm not giving them a certain details. Now, the cerebral guys, in my opinion, if I give them instruction, they do better than if I just make them play games. Like the athletic guys will do really well in your system. The cerebral guys, they need the nuance, they need the explain, they need to understand how the system works. If the guy does this, I do that. If the guy does that, I do. They have the bandwidth. So, some guys are like this. Like I'll give you for instance, like me and George were very different athletes. Okay, he was much more athletic than me,
Yeah.
but I was really good with if he does this, I need to go here. If he does that, like I was a computer. Like I believed in the algorithm. And John used to teach algorithmically, and that's why George and me we made such a great duo. He was a really good athlete, and I had the algorithm memorized. I knew it very well. I understood the system where he was supposed to go, when and where. I thought about it all the time. So for me, I feel like the athletes, and I believe it ultimately. I believe in merging both methods. Okay, so you break down the system, you drill it, and then okay, you go out in the real world and you do it live, and the context matters. I agree with merging both. Okay, but if we take away one and we have this piece, only the in context live combative training, I think that the better athletes will have a huge advantage.
Okay,
Because
so
the
it's come,
difference between me and George, the difference between me and George is I know that physics is on my side if I'm in this position here. And if I'm not in this position here, he's going to crush me with his strength.
well, just I just had a fun thought experiment, and then we can go
Yeah.
back to those
Yeah.
nuances. So
Please
let's
do.
say you and George get in the octagon on a random Saturday, and you fight to whoever wins. Truly, you and him.
Yeah.
Out of 10 times, how many times do you win?
Listen, I haven't. Look, he's bigger than. Are we talking about we're the same
No,
size?
no, no. Yeah, just you two as people. And I'll talk about why I'm asking you this.
Well, I'll tell you something. If I don't follow the rules, if I don't have a well, I hate to use me and him because it's gonna sound crazy, but he's the guy we all trained. We put our time and energy. But when we were younger and we used to spar, our rounds were they were very
When you were
competitive.
in development, people are much more competitive. But right now, you guys jumped in the cage right now. 10 out of 10 times, who wins?
Well, he's the former world champion. I mean, he'll crush anybody in the world.
Yeah. So, like, my point is to say that the athlete always beats the thinker. And I mean that if the
Mhm.
capacities are being equalized. So if I am big, strong, fast, and mean, and you're smart, unless I have some way to manipulate that novelty, you're gonna get train wrecked,
Well,
buddy. Right?
I wouldn't agree with that to be honest with you, because the
So
thing is,
out of 10 times,
right?
could you beat his athleticism with
Well,
your
let's say it's
thinking?
not. Let's take it out for me and George because that's going to create a bunch of people are going to clip this and they're going to make a whole nuance. But okay, let's talk about if there's an intellectual, a guy who understands the system and a guy who doesn't understand the system, but he's really strong.
Okay.
It's a very even fight, in my opinion. Could go
Okay.
either
So
way.
you,
Five out of
yeah.
five. 5 out of 5. If I can give it to you that way, I'll give it to you five
Okay.
out of five. To be honest with you,
Okay. So
totally.
all I was going to make a point is
Especially,
capacity.
sorry, Greg. Especially if there's more time. The more time you give me, eventually the intellectual guy wins.
Sure. So capacity has an effect on skill. So people that are big,
Of
fast,
course,
mean, aggressive, their skills are going to be expressed that way. And
of
if
course,
you're, and again, I don't know what level, like, I guess being intelligent or cerebral have an effect on skill, but I know that it does. Maybe it makes us more sensitive to the information that's being present and why it's being present, and maybe that enhancing our perceptive window makes us see more and more opportunities. Maybe I don't know, but maybe that capacity has a certain level of effectiveness against an athletic player. But it'd be hard to say. But either way, high levels of capacity affect skill. So the higher level of
of course,
capacity
of
you
course.
have in something,
Yeah.
excuse me.
No, I'm saying, of course, I totally agree with you.
the higher your capacity, the more effective skill you're going to have. If you're able to transfer that capacity into skilled behavior.
But Greg, you're a very smart guy. You're a very intelligent guy. You know that your intelligence has served you well on the mats. Of course, you
Well, and
understand.
to a degree,
Understanding makes a big difference.
for
Understanding
sure. I
makes.
mean, I know more about jujitsu than I can perform in jujitsu.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah.
So knowledge, facts, these things, this memory that we store in our head doesn't necessarily translate to skill, doesn't necessarily transfer to skill. We like to say it does. We like to imagine that it's the memorization of systems and these mind maps and blah, 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 blah. But again, it's only if you're able to use that to create novelty in your opponent's world and they're not able to adapt that novelty that will that have an effect.
Well, I think it
And
all
what's
matters, right?
an
Strength
example would,
matters.
well, it truly, it does all matter. I'm just trying to
Mm-hmm.
play the game that you
Right.
said. You have the cerebral guy and you have the athlete guy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
the difference? They're
Yeah,
just
but
capacities that we can use to express skill differently.
I think it's 5 out of 5. Like the intellectual guy beats the athletic guy 5 times out of 5 if he has as much intellect as he has physical capacity.
And
But
if we can say
if
that,
you
it's
I'm
a
sorry.
fun thought experiment.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, if we can say that, I mean, it's a fun thought experiment, but
Yeah,
I
right,
think
right, right.
it's really
We'd
hard.
have to test it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could point out so many fights where the guy used a very intelligent move to win the fight at the right
Cool.
time, right place, and
I mean,
he didn't have the look. I'll give you for instance. Okay, my brother just fought Jose Aldo, and Jose Aldo came in 8 pounds overweight, 8 pounds after my brother had made weight. You know, Jose Aldo, I'll tell you something, is bigger, stronger than my brother, much more explosive. It was a very close fight. My brother ended up on top of him, just elbowing him, and he took the last round and he won the fight. He did things that were smarter because he was outgunned. He was outsized. Aldo has a longer reach. He's faster. Aldo's faster. Aldo has more experience. But in the end, Aldo spent more energy and was completely gassed by the end of the fight that he just laid on his back for the last 3 minutes. And efficiency won the day in that fight. And I could point you to 100 other fights, you know.
yeah,
But George also, why he was so special is because he was incredibly physical and also incredibly
yeah.
intelligent guy as well.
Yeah, so, but again, I mean, that's all good, and I agree that capacity colors skill. I don't disagree with that in any way, shape,
Mm-hmm.
or form. But I don't know what that has to do with an ecological approach or not, or live training or drilling.
Oh, because
There's no correlation.
what I was saying earlier is that if I don't whisper the secrets to my fighters, because let's say I have a room full of fighters, okay?
Yeah,
50 of them are intellectuals.
yeah.
50% of them are brutes. Okay. When I give instructions and I explain the system, the intellectuals are getting a lot more from that than the brutes.
Well, so yeah, that's exactly right. Let's imagine that instruction is your only intervention. People who can use that, and let's say there's some mental capacity that drives skill in that certain
Right.
environment, then yeah, you're going to be a
Right.
more effective coach if that's your only intervention. But imagine if you could whisper the secret to the brute, just like you could whisper the secret to the intellectual, and you knew exactly which language both of them spoke. This would be a more effective way to coach.
But
So it's
sorry, what I was trying to get to is that they get more from the instruction, the theory, that the demonstration than the brutes. But the brutes will get more out of let's get in these positions and grind and or like have these constraints. They're going to get more out of that part than the intellectuals is what I'm trying to
well, we
say.
don't really know. So learning is
I'm
non-linear.
assuming, I'm
Yeah,
theorizing
well, I
from my
mean,
years of
again,
experience is what I'm trying to
so
say.
so the whole thing about this model that we're talking about of this ecological approach, this constraints led approach, whatever, is that it's what's called a nonlinear model. So the idea is that we don't know the input output ratio. So all the component parts that make up an individual and their environment are so numerous, it's hard to say what causes what. So
Right.
let's say we have a guy who's a brute, or he's big, strong, athletic guy with low intellect. We don't
You just
know.
you just described half my practice room.
Well, I understand sport is probably most of the people you interact with, but
No, I'm
um,
just kidding.
no, I'm not. There's actually a thing I read one time that there's actually a positive correlation with low intelligence and high implicit response. So,
Mhm.
like people who respond more implicitly and tend to be a little more athletic tend to be a little lower on the intellectual
Yeah,
spectrum.
yeah, yeah.
But either
That's
way,
I
that's
mean, that's the classic thing, right? That jock is dumb and the
yeah.
nerdy guy is wimpy, but he's super smart, right?
Yeah, I mean, because think about it, a nerdy guy spends all his time reading books and typing on the computer, and he's not throwing rocks at his buddies. The guy who's running
Right.
around like clubbing his friends, he's getting big, he's throwing his friends around. So it's like, is it
Mhm.
really that there's a nerd or a jock, or do we just get good at
But
what
you
we
know,
do?
there's actually, I mean, I don't want to get too far into this because it's very controversial, but higher testosterone levels also correlate with lower intelligence.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Mm. Natural higher testosterone
yeah,
levels.
I'm just going to believe you. I don't know, but so no, either way, I mean, I think that we have to know what's going to affect the athlete. So
Right.
what interventions are going to cause the change?